Hi everyone, Elizabeth here. So I wanted to do a quick video in regards to just talking about why I've ditched the television and a long time ago, and why it was one of the best decisions I've ever made, and how reducing screen time is still one of the best decisions that I've made, and I encourage you to also follow suit. As you know, like I've started every other video, things are still a mess. It's going to be a mess for a while. And one thing that I learned a long time ago, back in 2005 when I studied abroad in Australia, is that I discovered this whole other side of life outside of the television. The second time I moved abroad in 2007 to kind of backpack India and do the whole yoga in India experience to get my yoga teaching certificate, I discovered a whole other life outside of television. And the same thing occurred again when I moved back to Australia in 2008, that there was a whole other side to life outside of television. All of those experiences, I discovered that I actually lived my life. I gained not only spiritual knowledge because of yoga, as well as traveling and just seeing how other people think, eat, and live, and different cultural awarenesses, but I really started to see that how other cultures lived, that they were not so invested as well as indoctrinated by television. Television and all of these amazing inventions were created in America, and a lot of people have adopted this as a part of their lifestyle because they see it as a form of progress. And Americans have been kind of test tube babies for the television. You know, the boomers, I work with seniors, and I tell so many seniors that I don't watch television, or they're like, put CNN on for me in the gym. And I'm like, well, what station is CNN? Because I don't know what it is. And they just start laughing at me. And I'm like, hey, I just don't own a television. I'm like an alien to them. They don't understand, how can you not own a television? How can you not watch TV? The boomers, because the television came out during that mid-century time frame, early mid-century, they were the test tube babies for television. The millennials have been the test tube babies for video games and technology, and look at how it's shaped our culture. Living abroad, I learned to live my life. I learned that just coming home from a long 8-9 hour day of work and then baking in front of a television from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock was actually really depressing. And it was more depressing for my mental state. Right after grad school, after a year of hardcore studying and, work and everything else that goes along, the stress with surviving grad school, I used to watch The Biggest Loser because I kind of wanted to be one of those trainers. That was early on in my career at 23, 24. And the irony of watching that is, like, I would eat ice cream while I watched it. It actually made me depressed. And every time I removed myself, I became less and less depressed because I lived my life. And that's what I learned while living in Germany. People actually went out and socialized on a Monday night with friends at a cafe at 6 o'clock, or, people would sign up to do some form of activity like a painting workshop on Monday or Tuesdays. They didn't just sit around watching TV. Now they have adopted more television and have been turning their shows more into like the reality type TV shows that you have here in America. So they have been following the trends of America, and you can see, I've seen this dumbing down process of people in Germany because they think it's cool because America did it and America created it. With the spiritual knowledge that I have adopted throughout the time, there's always two energies, destruction and creation, and it's the same thing. They're not two separate events. When something gets destroyed, a new thing is created out of it. It's this death and rebirth process that's a part of life on this planet. And when I stopped destroying my mind and I stopped being indoctrinated, I recreated myself by living my life, by being free from all of that stuff. The first time I moved to Australia in 2005, that was like the massive adoption in my awakening process and spirituality is I came to realize how duped we were as Americans because of so much television. Not only the programming from things like MTV, but I just came to realize that almost every single millennial wanted to be famous. Ask a millennial what they wanted to be when they grow up, and I guarantee you probably 7 to 8 out of 10 millennials will use the word famous in front of something. I wanted to be a famous writer, or I wanted to be a famous rock star, or a famous tennis player. Like, we were brought up with seeing all this lifestyle of the rich and famous and the glamorous, fame. I remember once being like 16 or 17 watching like Road Rules and Real World on MTV, and I remember my dad being like, "You sure you really want to watch this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, don't worry about it." But like secretively, I always wanted to be on one of those shows. It's like I kind of wanted to have my claim to fame, and that's, if people don't detach from that type of programming, you can see how crazy things have gotten now that everybody has their own platform to be their own reality TV star, whether that's through a television show or on Instagram or on YouTube or somewhere on Facebook. Everybody is having their own platform, the ability to have their own platform to be their own kind of claim to fame. And it's kind of a sad reality. YouTube and Netflix, like when I threw out the television, especially after Germany, like when I came back, I never bought one. I didn't care. Netflix and YouTube were cool back in the day. Like it was a source for independent creative thinkers. And then you could see definitely after 2014 to 15, everything started going downhill, and Netflix and YouTube is the same as what television was, not only with the ads and advertisements, but with all the junk on there. There's nothing of substance. It's just all fast food for the mind and all this verbal vomit that's out there on the internet. So now reducing the screen time and just getting back to those old ways of living through living your life or, whatever, socializing with your friends and family is going to be really necessary for your mental health and well-being, because social media is a black hole of egos and opinions, and it's just going to be this spiral that will just never end. We have to come to realization that not everybody is going to agree with us or support our opinions or our belief systems. So we are kind of being forced into our own independent sovereignty, or just living our own individual lives and just kind of helping recreate or co-create your physical reality and walking away from a lot of those things that don't serve you. So the thing that most people are addicted to right now is the television screen and their social media accounts, especially in America, and they don't realize that tool is the tool of destruction. If they want more creativity, more creative energy, or just more creation, things coming into their life, they need to start reducing that. As a personal trainer, gyms were just gyms. And then, midway through my career, definitely around probably 2011 and 12, TV and all that stuff, technology started to creep its way into the gym. We no longer exercised, we were exertaining. So pretty much people's brains were like glued to the television as they're doing the little elliptical. There was no mind-body connection. Their brain and their mind was numbed out while their physical body was moving, but they were not bringing any form of awareness to what was physically and physiologically happening. So this indoctrination is coming everywhere. If you've ever been to Las Vegas, you can't get away from the freaking screens. There's screens in the bathroom stalls. There's television screens in the back of the taxi cab. And when you remove yourself from this stuff for a long period of time, I can't be at work without getting frazzled and stressed out, especially when the old people tell me to turn MSNBC or CNN on, because all it is just constant shouting and yelling for hours at a time, and it stresses me out because it's like you're just living, I'm living in this moment of zen bliss state where it's like a quiet household. I hear the birds chirping, and instead of all this just racket and noise and this destructive energy that's just pounding crap and garbage into your brain. I've worked with people long enough that there are so many people who think that a lot of these techie people, they actually think they're awoke or whatever, but they're addicted to Netflix and they're addicted to social media, and they always have to take a selfie and they always have to self-promote themselves. It's because they don't have ego, or they don't have a healthy ego, or they don't have enough self-worth to make them not need external praise and support for their own self-esteem. I forgot where I was going to go next with this thought, but movies and television and stuff can be its own art form. And I do think that you can still watch movies and stuff like that and still appreciate stuff. But if you look at the trajectory or the lineage, you can see how the television and movies have shaped our culture and our existence. So if you've seen how destructive it's gotten, so for example, back in the 50s, everybody was very presentable. They wore really nice clothes. They were inspired by these great American households called Leave It to Beaver, which could be a good thing, but it also could be a bad thing. At least one positive part about back then is that it inspired people to better themselves or to live in a more functional way. Now, some people will go on the other side of the fence and say that it did not support people to come out with forms of dysfunction. But when you look at television today, all you see is dysfunction. So it's just breeding more and more dysfunction. Look at Netflix, Amazon movies. Look at all this dark stuff that's coming out, whether it's the zombie stuff like The Walking Dead or just all this doom and gloom post-apocalyptic stuff. It is literally bringing out the dark side in people, and it's programming them to be on the dark side. There's always been dark and light people throughout every culture and generation and every era on the planet. But now it's inspiring more of that because it's programming people. Even if you study fine art, you can look at the beauty of fine art from a couple hundred years ago, and then when you start looking at World War II, getting into this modern and postmodern era, you can start seeing how dark people's minds are. I challenge you to, I have an Etsy shop, so I challenge you to go on something like Etsy and just type in dark art and look at the amount of shit coming out of people's heads. These people scare the hell out of me. They're also wrapped up in the energy of buying like taxidermy, so everything that's promoted around death, dead things, destruction, blood, inverted crosses. It's kind of like this whole culture of not valuing life or love, and it's all destruction. So don't you want to be on the other side of creation? That is, think about creation. Not only is it art, that's how we get our food. It's through creation. That's how we get babies and little baby animals, is all through creation. So you can choose what side of the fence you're on, but how many people back in the Victorian era were creating mass dark art? It's almost like that was like a subculture back in the day, maybe like a very, very, very little bit of people. Now the dark stuff is becoming the mainstream, and you can look at all the dark crap on television and all the death, the destruction, the murders, the movies and shows about rape. Do you really want to tap into that animalistic side of you all the time, the lower brain? All of this that I've been talking about might be kind of jumbled, but it all kind of goes into the fact of why throwing out the television was one of the best choices that I've made in life. It's because I've let go of anything that has kept me down. It's kept me sedentary. It made me emotionally depressed to where I wanted to eat junk food and not take care of my physical body. So I cut it out and I removed it from my life, and I chose to live my life. And a lot of that is because of being influenced by other cultures who weren't completely 100% indoctrinated by television like we were. Although now the whole world is, because it's, the screens are everywhere with Netflix and YouTube. Now everybody's just becoming screen addicts. A couple years ago, I did a 40-day social media detox, and I talked about that on YouTube. It's probably from the summer of 2019, probably 2 years ago at this point, July. So you can go back and reference these things. This is good for your mental state. Shit's gonna be crazy for a while. So anyways, throwing out the television, I've chose to live my life, or relive my life, let's put it that way. And I just wasn't wasting it. And some of the healthiest people that I've ever trained are the ones who do also choose to live their life. They have closer family connections, good friendships, they have hobbies. The people who I've trained who have been kind of the sickest, don't know if that's the right word, or just the least healthy people, they've been overweight, they watch a shit ton of television. Most of them are probably older and single. They don't eat good. They watch, did I say television? They all get the flu shots because they don't want to get sick. They're completely, and then they're on meds because of low blood pressure and diabetes and all this other crap. So working with seniors has made me realize how indoctrinated we've become to the television, especially the boomers have easily adopted these things. Because a lot of their generation created this stuff, created the television. They also created some, new pill or med to help fight this, that, and the other. And they've just, I don't know. It's just sad. Anyways, I'm going to end this here because I'm just rambling at this point. But if you've thrown out your television, I would love to hear why you did and how it's helped you. This doesn't mean you can't watch things or just not be aware. It's just getting sucked into it. Like, I watch a movie on Friday nights, okay? Stream a movie. But I have very limited selection on what I can handle to watch because I'm so sensitive that I don't want to watch this garbage that's out today. Nothing dystopian. I definitely don't want to watch that. But you can appreciate it for its art form, which you see that a lot in, the 90s movies and things from before, even the early 2000s. There were some really good movies that were made. And now it's just, the mainstream is just dark and garbage. Just don't get sucked into it. Don't let it rule your life. One final thought, I know moving abroad is, whenever I've met Americans, the conversations always revolved around movies or a celebrity, and other people from other countries, especially Germany, are just like, oh my God, or they were like crossing their eyes because they just couldn't handle talking about, Britney Spears or some other celebrity like that. And it's just like when you remove yourself from your comfort zone and you start analyzing things, you're like, God, it's like, who gives a shit that it's Miley Cyrus's birthday? Like, no one does. I don't, at least. All right. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing, and hope you have a great day. See you next time. Bye-bye.